What if a baby's cry was the beginning of a secret that would turn your whole life upside down? Amanda just wanted to get through another grueling shift. But when she saw that baby, all alone and crying his little heart out, something inside her cracked. Or maybe it was reborn. She picked him up, held him close, and softly hummed a lullaby, unaware that across the room, a millionaire was watching with eyes full of secrets, not out of curiosity, but because that waitress was so much more than she seemed. This story is going to stir something in you. It'll make your heart race break and start beating again. So stay with us till the end. The twist? You won't see it coming. Comment what you would have done in Amanda's shoes, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what's next. Let's begin. Nathan Cross wasn't just another rich man caught up in a touching scene. He was an empire in human form, built on cold decisions and razor-sharp calculations. A business titan who could move billions with a single nod. But at 62, Nathan faced the biggest dilemma of his life: finding a worthy heir. His 3 grown children had failed every character test he'd quietly set up over the years. Marcus, the eldest, was a gambling addict who burned through millions. Elena, icy as steel, treated employees like they were disposable. And Thomas, the youngest, threw lavish parties where compassion drowned in expensive champagne. But the pain Nathan carried had nothing to do with money. He had built a kingdom, yet failed to raise true leaders. People who understood that power came with the duty to protect others. Late at night, in his office high above the city, he often wondered if he'd raised monsters instead of children. The loneliness weighed on him like a lead blanket, and time was running out. Every day, his company grew, but his family fell apart like a house of cards. Wealth had poisoned the very hearts he once cherished most. Then came a discovery that shook him to his core, buried in the files of his personal attorney. A daughter he never knew existed. She was the result of a short-lived romance with Helena, a nurse who died in a tragic accident when Amanda was still a little girl. Nathan's heart nearly stopped when he saw the birth certificate and the photos the private investigator had collected. Amanda had his green eyes, his stubborn jawline, and something more, something he hadn't seen in decades. She had kindness. It radiated from her, even in a simple waitress uniform. Right then, Nathan knew he hadn't just found a daughter. He might have found the one person truly worthy of his legacy. But Nathan Cross wasn't a man who left things to chance. If Amanda really was his heir, she'd have to pass the same test the others failed. That baby she was rocking in her arms? That wasn't a coincidence. It was Gabriel, his own grandson, Marcus's son, and he'd been placed in that restaurant on purpose as part of an elaborate test. Nathan needed to see if Amanda had what it took: a compassionate heart, strong enough to lead an empire that impacted thousands of lives. He watched her every move, every gentle touch, every soft note of the lullaby. His business-hardened heart thumped wildly, caught between fragile hope and the fear of yet another bitter disappointment. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man who once controlled every detail of his world now depended on a stranger, one who had no idea who he was, to determine the future of everything he'd built. Amanda wasn't just a long-lost daughter. She was his last shot at redemption, the final hope for a family lost in the maze of wealth and ambition. And as he watched her hold Gabriel with a tenderness his own children had never shown, Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in years: real hope. But hope comes with a price, and a risk. Because what if she failed? That fear lived in the pit of his stomach. Still, he prayed, for the first time in a long time, that maybe this time he was making the right call. The test had been planned down to the smallest detail. For months, Nathan paid to have Gabriel brought to the restaurant during Amanda's shift. Hidden cameras, planted observers, every second monitored. He needed to see if she'd show compassion when no one was watching. If she'd care for a child that wasn't her responsibility. Her choices would decide not only her future, but the fate of thousands of employees, dozens of charitable projects, and the very direction of Cross Industries itself. He knew he was playing with people's lives, including hers. But in his mind, it was the only way to find someone truly worthy of the empire. As Amanda softly hummed to Gabriel, Nathan thought of Helena, the only woman who ever loved him for who he was, not what he owned. She'd died without ever knowing she was pregnant, killed in a car crash on her way to volunteer at the hospital. Nathan never learned of the pregnancy until a private investigator uncovered old medical records long after she was gone. Now, watching Amanda care for Gabriel with that same selfless love Helena once showed, Nathan didn't know if this was a miracle or just another cruel trick of fate. The decision he faced was crushing. If Amanda passed the test, he'd tell her everything, that he was her father, that she was the rightful heir to a fortune that could change her life forever. But if she failed, he didn't even want to think about it. So he watched her, closely. Every glance, every gentle touch, every second she cradled Gabriel and sang to him. His fingers tapped nervously on the desk, his eyes stung, but no tears fell. Generations were on the line, and for the first time in his life, Nathan Cross was praying. But there was one thing Nathan didn't know. Amanda carried a secret too, a wound no one could see, a silent scar that shaped her every breath. Her past held a tragedy that haunted her, a guilt so deep, her hands still trembled whenever she held a child. As she sang to Gabriel, tears rolled down her cheeks, not out of joy, but from a pain Nathan couldn't yet understand. The very test he'd created had struck the most fragile part of her soul, and that might change everything. Amanda Silva was 25 and carried the weight of the world on her shoulders like it was her own personal burden. Her green eyes, an inheritance from a father she never knew, held a sorrow that ran deeper than most could guess, contrasting with the warm smile she offered to every customer at the Saber Casero diner. Her hands, calloused from years of tireless work, moved with practiced precision between trays and tables, but they trembled slightly every time a child cried nearby. No one at the restaurant knew that behind the cheerful, hard-working waitress was a woman haunted by a past that made her wake up screaming night after night. Amanda had learned how to cover up her pain with kindness and smiles, but inside, she felt like a shattered doll, barely holding herself together. She'd been an orphan since she was 7, shuffled through foster homes that felt more like war zones than safe havens. At 15, she finally landed in the home of Martha, a widowed woman who, for the first time in Amanda's life, treated her like a real daughter. Martha taught embroidery, baked cinnamon cookies, and sang old songs while Amanda helped with chores. For once, Amanda felt what it meant to be loved by a mother, someone who waited for her after school, someone who worried when she coughed, someone who held her tight when nightmares came. Those were the happiest years of her life. And Amanda believed, truly believed, she had finally found her place in the world. But happiness, as she would learn the cruelest way, doesn't always last. The fire happened on a winter night, when Amanda was 17. She had left the iron plugged in after pressing her school uniform, something she did on autopilot every Sunday. In the middle of the night, it short-circuited and set the old wooden house ablaze. Amanda woke up to the smell of smoke and managed to escape, but when she tried to go back for Martha, there was only fire, and the gut-wrenching horror of knowing the only person who ever truly loved her had died because of her mistake. The scream she let out that night never really left her. It echoed inside her soul like a permanent wail. Since then, Amanda carried her guilt like a stone lodged in her chest, convinced that anything she touched was doomed to break. After the tragedy, she ran away from the system, refusing to go back to another foster home. Not when she believed she brought nothing but destruction to those who took her in. She spent years on the streets, picking up odd jobs to survive, slept in shelters, under bridges, in abandoned buildings, always running whenever someone got too close. Her guilt shadowed her like a curse, whispering in her ear that she was toxic, unlucky, destined to hurt anyone who dared care about her. She developed a deep fear of stoves, irons, anything that could cause fire. Her hands would shake uncontrollably whenever she had to deal with electrical equipment. The girl who once dreamed of a family had turned into a young woman convinced she was meant to be alone forever. Lisa, the head cook at Saber Casero, found Amanda sleeping behind the building on a freezing Monday morning. Instead of calling the cops, Lisa handed her a hot cup of coffee and a warm plate of food. "Need work?" she asked gently. There was something in Lisa's gaze. No judgment, just maternal compassion. Amanda hadn't seen that in years. When Lisa learned Amanda had no place to stay, she offered her a tiny room behind the restaurant in exchange for help with cleaning. Amanda hesitated, terrified her curse would strike another kind soul. But hunger and cold made the decision for her. She took the job, swearing it was temporary, just long enough to save up and leave again. 3 years later, Amanda was still there, but now as an official waitress. The regulars adored her. They loved her genuine warmth, how she remembered their orders, how she made them feel seen. But Amanda kept everyone at a polite distance, friendly, but guarded. She sent most of her paycheck to orphanages and children's shelters, trying, quietly, desperately, to pay penance for what she believed she'd done. Her nights were still filled with nightmares, always the same: the smell of smoke, Martha's scream, the unbearable guilt. Amanda functioned on autopilot, smiling by day, crying by night, alive, but not really living. Money was always tight. Even working 6 days a week, she barely managed rent on the small apartment she'd moved into after leaving the back room. Her shoes were patched with black nail polish, her uniforms hand-sewn with loving precision. She survived mostly on leftovers Lisa let her take home. Amanda had become an expert at stretching every cent. She bought only what was absolutely necessary, always on sale. No luxuries, no indulgences. She secretly dreamed of one day leaving town, escaping the ghosts that haunted every corner of that city. But she knew that was a fantasy for people with options, and she didn't have any. Still, despite everything she'd been through, Amanda had this rare gift. She could see pain in others, and somehow ease it, even when she was completely shattered inside. She always had a little extra kindness for the elderly man who ate alone every Tuesday, always remembered to ask the office worker about her sick daughter, had endless patience for difficult children whose parents looked worn thin. Her own pain had made her more tender, and that quiet compassion hadn't gone unnoticed. Someone powerful was watching her, watching every move, and that someone was growing more interested with every passing day. When Amanda picked up Gabriel in her arms that Tuesday morning, she had no idea she was about to face the biggest test of her life. The baby's cries pulled all her buried trauma to the surface, but they also awakened a fierce, maternal instinct. Her hands trembled, not from fear of hurting him, but from remembering the pain of not being able to save Martha. But something deeper, something stronger than guilt, took over. A raw, primal need to protect this helpless child. As she softly sang to calm Gabriel, she had no clue someone was watching. Someone who carried secrets powerful enough to change her life forever. Fate had brought father and daughter to the same place, but neither of them knew they were about to discover that sometimes our greatest blessings come dressed as our worst fears. As Amanda rocked Gabriel with a tenderness that made nearby customers smile without even realizing it, Carlos Mendez, the restaurant manager, watched with a scowl sharp enough to slice glass. His beady, calculating eyes locked on the waitress who dared waste time on a child when she should have been serving tables. Carlos was the type who measured a person's worth by how much money they brought in. And in his mind, compassion was just a business liability. "Amanda, what the hell is this? You're not here to play babysitter," he growled through clenched teeth, stomping toward her, his heavy steps making the old floorboards groan. Amanda felt the familiar pit form in her stomach, the same one that always showed up when Carlos was near. But she didn't stop rocking Gabriel. That child needed her more than she needed Carlos's approval. Sarah Montenegro, Amanda's co-worker for the past 2 years, watched with a sly smirk tugging at her lips. She'd long been eaten up by envy of Amanda's kindness, her popularity with customers, and the motherly affection Lisa showed her. Sarah thought she was prettier, smarter, and more deserving. Yet it was Amanda who got bigger tips, Amanda the customers asked for by name. "Look at Saint Amanda doing her charity act again," she whispered to another waitress, voice dripping with venom. "Bet it's all just a show. Watch. She's hiding something. I can feel it." Her words slithered like poison into willing ears. And Sarah? She knew exactly how to sow suspicion and let it bloom. Amanda's financial situation had gotten even worse in recent weeks. The landlord had jacked up her rent out of nowhere, taking advantage of tenant laws and her lack of options. She'd started skipping meals to save money, brushing it off with fake smiles and excuses about being on a diet. Her clothes hung looser on her frame. Lisa had begun to notice the dark circles makeup no longer covered. Amanda knew she couldn't keep this up much longer. But every dollar stretched meant one more night with a roof over her head. The irony didn't escape her, taking care of others while falling apart herself. A mysterious man had shown up at the restaurant 3 times the week before, always sitting in the corner with the perfect view of Amanda. He was tall, dressed in quiet luxury, his gaze clinical, almost scientific. When she came to take his order, he asked subtle, probing questions. "How long have you worked here? Any family in town? What does a pretty girl like you do for fun?" On the surface, the questions seemed harmless, but something about the way he looked at her, like she was under a microscope, made her skin crawl. She answered politely but stayed guarded, her instincts screaming that something wasn't right. Carlos had doubled down on his campaign of humiliation, clearly triggered by the praise Amanda got from customers. He began correcting her loudly in front of others, blaming her for made-up mistakes, mocking her appearance and background. "Orphan waitresses always bring trouble," he muttered within earshot. "Street girls like her don't know how to deal with decent people." Each comment hit like an invisible slap. Amanda swallowed her tears and pushed through, because losing that job wasn't an option. But Carlos knew exactly where her scars were, and he poked them with surgical precision. The restaurant's air conditioner had broken the week before, turning the place into a sauna. Amanda kept hauling heavy trays through stifling heat, her uniform clinging to her sweaty skin, smiling at cranky customers who complained about the temperature. Her legs, already sore from long shifts, began to swell. A cough settled in her chest. She blamed the stale air and stress. Lisa offered help. Amanda refused, not out of pride but fear. She'd learned early on, dependency meant vulnerability, and vulnerability led to pain, so she suffered in silence, just like always. Meanwhile, Sarah had launched a whisper campaign, spreading rumors spiked with half-truths and outright lies. She told others Amanda stole tips, lied about her past, flirted with married men for money. "Seen how cozy she is with that guy in the suit?" she whispered. "Something's off. And that orphan story? Who knows what she really did to survive on the streets?" The gossip spread like wildfire, and Amanda began noticing the side eyes, the co-workers pulling away. Her loneliness deepened, turning into a chasm. And Sarah? She knew exactly how to push Amanda over the edge. Then came the electric bill, a ridiculous amount, caused by a billing error the company refused to fix. She spent hours on the phone, passed from rep to rep hearing the same robotic lines. The bill was nearly 2 months' worth of tips, money she didn't have. She didn't know how to get it. She stayed up all night, scribbling numbers, trying to figure out how to pay without starving for weeks. For the first time in years, Amanda seriously considered going back to the streets, and that terrified her more than any nightmare. What Amanda didn't know was that someone had been watching, not just her moment with Gabriel, but everything. Her patience under pressure, her grace under fire, her quiet resilience in the face of cruelty. Nathan Cross was taking notes. He saw the way she smiled when she wanted to cry, how she gave even when she had nothing left. And he knew, this woman was different. Amanda had no idea, but she was passing the most important test of her life, a test that would decide not just her future, but the legacy of generations. When Amanda's shift ended that Tuesday, and no one had come to claim Gabriel, she made a decision that made her heart race with equal parts fear and hope. She couldn't just hand the baby over to social services. There was something in his blue eyes that stirred a maternal instinct in her, one that battled fiercely against the weight of her past trauma. "Lisa, I'm taking him home tonight," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "We'll look for his family tomorrow, but I can't let him go to a shelter." Her hands trembled as she grabbed the makeshift diaper bag Lisa had packed. Each step toward the door felt like a leap into the abyss of her memories. Gabriel, sensing her anxiety, began to cry softly, as if he too feared whatever waited for them on the other side. Amanda's tiny apartment had never felt so quiet or haunted. Every shadow on the wall reminded her of the last time she'd cared for someone. Martha burning as Amanda watched, helpless and drowning in guilt. Gabriel slept in a makeshift crib made from pillows and blankets, but Amanda couldn't close her eyes. She sat on the floor next to him, watching his tiny chest rise and fall, terrified that something would go wrong under her watch. "Please, God," she whispered into the stillness of the night, "don't let me hurt him. Don't let my curse touch him." Tears streamed down her face as she made a silent vow to protect Gabriel no matter the cost, even if it meant sacrificing herself. But deep down, a fear gnawed at her resolve. the fear that her presence might do more harm than good. Nathan Cross watched Amanda's apartment through discreetly placed cameras, his heart caught between admiration and worry. He had originally arranged for someone to retrieve Gabriel at the end of the day, but when he saw Amanda's unwavering determination, he held back. He needed to see just how far she would go, for a child who wasn't hers. Through the lenses, he watched her all night, checking Gabriel's breathing every few minutes, singing softly when he stirred, crying silently as she watched over him. "She's got Helena's heart," Nathan murmured, remembering how Amanda's mother used to care for patients with the same quiet, selfless love. But he also saw the raw fear in Amanda's eyes, a deeper pain that had nothing to do with first-time parenting. The next morning brought challenges Amanda hadn't seen coming. Gabriel woke up crying, not hungry, not wet, just distressed, and she couldn't figure out why. She tried everything, singing, rocking, funny faces, even water, but nothing worked. Despair surged inside her like a rising tide. Maybe she wasn't meant to take care of him. "I'm not good at this," she whispered through sobs. "I ruin everything I touch. You'd probably be better off without me." And yet, even as she said those words, her arms wrapped tighter around him, a contradiction that revealed the war inside her. Gabriel, as if sensing her pain, finally calmed down and fell asleep in her arms. And in that moment, Amanda felt something she'd never known before. Like maybe, just maybe, she'd done something right. That day at the restaurant, Amanda kept Gabriel with her, setting up a safe space in the back of the kitchen where Lisa helped care for him between orders. But the baby's presence only added fuel to Carlos's rage. "This isn't a daycare, Amanda. Either get rid of the kid or get out," he shouted in front of the whole staff and a few customers. Amanda's cheeks flushed with humiliation, but she lifted her chin with a strength that surprised even her. "He's got no one, Mr. Carlos. I just need one more day to find his family." Her voice quivered, but there was something new in it, something solid. Caring for Gabriel had awakened a courage she didn't know she had. Carlos muttered something about overly emotional women and stormed off, but Amanda knew. She'd just declared war on someone who had power over her paycheck. Sarah seized the moment to escalate her attacks. She whispered to anyone who would listen that Amanda had kidnapped the baby, that it was all a stunt to get attention and bigger tips. "What are the odds that a baby just happens to show up at her table?" she hissed. "Bet it's all an act. That girl'll do anything to play the victim." Her venom spread like wildfire through the staff, and Amanda began to feel the stares, even from regulars who used to smile at her. Every whisper, every sideways glance stabbed at her already fragile confidence. She started to wonder, had she done the right thing taking Gabriel home? Was she being selfish? Maybe he really did need professional care, something she couldn't give. Nathan decided it was time to step in. He showed up at the restaurant, introducing himself as a businessman concerned about community well-being. He arrived during the lunch rush just in time to see Amanda working with Gabriel strapped to her chest in a sling Lisa had made. There was something achingly beautiful in that scene. A young woman balancing work and temporary motherhood, moving with such gentle precision that she barely disturbed the sleeping child. When Amanda came to take his order, Nathan noticed the deep bags under her eyes, the paleness makeup couldn't hide, the nearly imperceptible tremble in her hands. "You look like a natural," he said softly, watching her adjust Gabriel's position without thinking. "Is he your son?" The question hit her hard. She shook her head, eyes misty. "No, sir. I'm just taking care of him until we find his family." Nathan saw the sadness in her eyes, and in that moment he knew he was witnessing something rare, pure, unconditional love. The night before had been a nightmare for Amanda. Gabriel had developed a low-grade fever, and panic had gripped her like a vice. Should she take him to the hospital? Was she overreacting? She spent hours scouring the internet on her phone, eyes burning from exhaustion, checking and rechecking his temperature. Every cough, every restless shift sent her heart into a spiral of fear, pulling her straight back to that night of the fire. "I can't lose him too," she whispered to the sleeping baby. "I couldn't survive that. Not again." When Gabriel finally stabilized the next morning, the wave of relief left her dizzy. But alongside it came a terrifying realization. She had bonded with this child in a way that could shatter her when the time came to let go. And then the day brought a revelation that changed everything. A sharply dressed man entered the diner, asking for Gabriel. He claimed to be a private investigator hired by the baby's family. Amanda's knees nearly buckled when he explained that Gabriel's parents had died in a car accident, and distant relatives were stepping in to claim custody. "He needs to come with me now," the man said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Amanda looked down at Gabriel in her arms, feeling like her soul was being ripped apart. Her hands trembled as she packed his diaper bag, each item a painful goodbye. "Can I visit him sometimes?" she asked, voice cracking. The man shook his head, his face unreadable, maybe sympathetic, maybe annoyed. "That won't be possible. The family wants a clean start." And just like that, he was gone. With Gabriel, Amanda collapsed in the back of the kitchen, sobbing harder than she had since Martha's death. Lisa found her there, broken and whispering to the empty space. "I should have known better. I always lose the ones I love." But what Amanda didn't know was that this heartbreak was just another part of the test, and someone powerful had seen every tear, every act of love, every second of pain she had poured into a child she thought she'd never see again. Lisa found Amanda sitting on the pantry floor, eyes swollen, arms empty, as if a part of her had been ripped away. Without a word, Lisa knelt beside her and wrapped her in a quiet hug, like a mother who doesn't need an explanation to understand your grief. Amanda wept into her shoulder, like a child who'd tried to be strong for far too long. "You did more for that baby in 3 days than most people do in a lifetime," Lisa whispered, holding her hand. And in that small human touch, Amanda felt something shift, a fragile strength born from shared pain. In the days that followed, Amanda threw herself into work like it was the only thing keeping her afloat. Carlos stayed cruel. Sarah got nastier. But Lisa became her anchor. They started eating lunch together behind the kitchen, sometimes in silence, sometimes in whispered stories. Lisa told her about losing her own baby, and how cooking helped keep her heart busy. Amanda listened as if every word were sewing torn pieces of her soul back together. One afternoon, Lisa handed her a small, worn box wrapped in a faded ribbon. "This belonged to my son. I don't know why, but I think it was meant for you." Inside, a tiny wool shoe, a silver pacifier, and a handwritten note. "The love you give is never lost. It always comes back, one way or another." Amanda clutched the note, tears blurring the words. And for the first time since Gabriel left, a thin ray of hope pierced through the haze of her grief. Meanwhile, Nathan kept watching, from afar, but with his heart drawing closer by the day. The reports his team gave him weren't enough anymore. He wanted to see her, hear her, feel what she felt. One rainy night, he stood across the street from the diner and watched Amanda close out the register, her eyes sad but steady. She hugged Lisa goodbye, long and heartfelt, the kind of hug you give to someone who saved your life without even knowing it. "She's not perfect, but she's real," Nathan whispered, a knot forming in his throat. Amanda had started writing late at night, letters she'd never send, conversations she never had the courage to have. Some were for Martha, others for Gabriel. One read, "Will anyone ever choose all of me, without trying to fix me, without fearing my pain?" She didn't know. Nathan read that letter. One of his investigators had pulled it from the trash during surveillance, and reading it, melted something cold inside him. Lisa had begun teaching Amanda to cook, just like she had with her son, with patience, laughter, stories tucked between recipes. "Every dish is a memory in disguise," she'd say. Amanda laughed, sometimes cried, but she kept learning, peeling potatoes and seasoning ground beef, and slowly, healing herself. She started looking in the mirror with a little less guilt, a little more grace. Gabriel still filled her thoughts, but the pain of his absence began to settle, like a scar that had closed but itched now and then. It was on one of those quiet afternoons that Lisa said something Amanda never expected. "The baby, Gabriel, I knew he was coming." Amanda froze, knife in midair. Lisa looked down, twisting her fingers. "I dreamt about him, the night before. He was in your arms and you were crying, but not from pain, from peace. And when I woke up, I just knew something big was about to happen to you." Amanda tried to laugh, but her throat tightened. "You've always been more than you think, Amanda. So much more." And as Amanda deepened her bond with Lisa, something inside her began to shift. She didn't know what the future held, But for the first time, she didn't feel like she was walking through it alone. Her wounds were still there, but now they had names, faces, and stories. Gabriel, Martha, Lisa. Each had left a piece of love where there once was only emptiness. Amanda didn't know the word for it yet, but she was learning what it meant to have roots, to belong, to be whole. But what she didn't know was that someone she saw as a warm, comforting presence was hiding truths too. Lisa, the woman who held her through the worst, carried a secret that could shake the very ground Amanda was just learning to stand on. A secret connected to the past and to the baby she'd loved like her own. Is Amanda ready to find out that nothing, absolutely nothing, was ever an accident? The diner was louder than usual that Friday, and Amanda felt like a misplaced puzzle piece. Her smiles came with effort, her steps were heavy, and the emptiness in her arms still screamed his absence. Since Gabriel was taken, a strange silence followed her everywhere, like something essential had been ripped out of her chest. But that day, everything was about to change, and not for the better. When Carlos called her into his office, his voice was unusually calm. "Have a seat, Amanda. We have something serious to talk about." Her stomach dropped instantly. Dread. On the desk sat a red folder. Carlos opened it slowly, savoring the suspense, and spread out a pile of papers, photos, and crumpled clippings. "You didn't really think you could hide your past forever, did you?" He tossed an old police report onto the desk, her name highlighted in red. Amanda went pale. "Where did you get that?" she whispered, feeling the ground disappear beneath her feet. Carlos grinned, pleased with himself. A reliable source. Or better yet, a very curious coworker. Turns out Sarah has a talent for digging things up. It wasn't just an attack. It was a staged betrayal, performed in front of everyone. The news spread through the restaurant like wildfire. "Waitress wanted for fatal fire," blared the headline of an old, low-quality newspaper article, printed out and taped to the staff break-room wall. By Sarah. Amanda felt the shift in the room. Respect turned to suspicion. Kindness turned to fear. She didn't scream. She didn't fight back. She just walked out, quietly, her steps small and unsure, like she didn't know whether to run or collapse right there. Lisa tried to follow her, but Amanda lifted a trembling hand. "Not now," she said softly. "If I speak right now, I'll break." She walked to the river at the end of the street, a place she used to go when she needed to think or escape herself. She sat on the rain-soaked bench and stared at the dark water, flowing as fast as her thoughts. "Maybe Sarah's right," she whispered. "Maybe I really am a danger to people. Maybe the world's better off without me." Self-sabotage felt like an old friend at that moment, and Amanda was just too tired to fight it. Then, an envelope dropped into her lap. Not from the wind. From a man in a suit, who passed by with the precision of someone completing a mission. Amanda looked around, but he was already gone. With shaking hands, she opened the envelope. Inside, a handwritten letter, elegant and steady. "You were extraordinary. Don't give up now. You're about to discover something that will change everything. NC." For a moment, Amanda felt anger. Who was this NC to meddle in her life? But beneath the anger, a warmth. Someone had seen her. Someone knew the truth. Lisa found Amanda that night sitting in the dark, the letter still in her hands. She turned on the lamp gently, sat beside her, and said, "You need to know something. What Carlos posted, it's not the whole truth. Not even close." Amanda turned slowly. "How do you know that?" Lisa hesitated. "Because I was there that night. I saw what happened. And I don't think you were ever to blame." The words hit Amanda's chest like thunder. What exactly had Lisa seen? And why had she kept it hidden all this time? The next day, Amanda returned to the diner to collect her things. Her co-workers avoided her, pretending to be busy, as if silence could protect them from the fire-starter waitress. Carlos sat in his office, smug, sure he'd won. Amanda didn't say a word. She gathered her things, walked to the door, and before leaving, looked him in the eye. "You think you broke me, but all you did was show me the kind of man you are. And me? I'm still standing, even if I'm in pieces." Nathan, watching everything from his spacious office, had no doubts left. Amanda was made of rare material. She'd been exposed, humiliated, emotionally stripped in front of everyone. And still, she walked. In his hands, He held the latest report from the investigator, new evidence about the fire, truths that could change everything. But he hesitated, because the right truth at the wrong time could destroy the very thing he was trying to protect. Amanda needed to be ready. But how do you prepare someone to learn that their deepest wound was built on a lie? That night, Amanda lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and whispered, "I don't know who I am anymore, but I know who I want to be." Her words echoed off the peeling walls, a promise or maybe a plea to the universe. As she drifted off, Lisa sat in the living room, an old journal in her lap. Inside, pages written by Helena, Amanda's mother, filled with details that could change everything. But there was one problem. Lisa wasn't just the cook, and she wasn't just a friend. At the center of it all, one question began to scream. What if Amanda wasn't just being tested? What if, this whole time, she was the key to a secret far bigger than legacies or empires? Amanda woke with heavy eyes, but a heart just a little lighter, as if, after all this time, she'd finally stopped running. From others, from herself. Nathan's letter sat folded beside her bed, next to a cold cup of tea Lisa had left the night before. She stared at the stained ceiling, took a deep breath, and gathered the strength to rebuild the part of herself that had been torn away. If the world was going to keep trying to knock her down, then she'd learn to rise better. The decision wasn't loud. It was quiet, like everything real in Amanda's life had always been. That morning she went to the neighborhood laundromat and pinned a flyer on the bulletin board, offering childcare and home organization, reliable, experienced, fair rates. Simple, but hers. A first step, trying to rebuild with what she had. Then she walked to the town square and began handing flyers to tired moms and distracted caretakers. Every forced smile she gave was another brick in the bridge she was trying to build back to herself. No one called that day, but Amanda went to bed knowing she'd finally stopped living under a story written by others. Lisa helped however she could, praising Amanda's flyers, editing her text, teaching her simple, healthy recipes for the children who might one day come. "What you're doing is pure courage, Amanda," she said as Amanda washed dishes. "There's nothing more powerful than a woman rebuilding her life with the same hands the world tried to break." Amanda smiled shyly, but those words planted roots. She was beginning to realize her strength didn't come from the absence of fear, but from continuing despite it. A few days later, Amanda got a call from an elderly woman who lived just 2 blocks from the diner. She needed someone to care for her 3-year-old granddaughter while she worked 2 hospital shifts. Amanda said yes without hesitation. When she arrived at the modest home, its lavender scent filling the air, she felt a strange warmth in her chest. The little girl, Sophia, reminded her of Gabriel, not in looks but in the way she watched the world with both caution and longing. Amanda sang to her, just like she had to Gabriel, and felt that same invisible thread form, a quiet connection between 2 broken souls. Bit by bit, things began to change. Other moms started calling. One recommended Amanda to another. Soon she was caring for 3 children on alternating days. She bought notebooks to track schedules, snacks, and activities. She decorated her apartment with children's drawings and toys donated by Lisa. Every small step felt huge. More than that, Amanda began to believe she could be a good presence in someone's life, that maybe destruction wasn't her legacy after all. But at night, when the world grew quiet, she still felt Gabriel's absence like a blade lodged in her chest. Certain songs, certain smells, even the distant sound of a child crying, all brought back the brief time she'd felt like a mother. During one of those moments, she wrote another letter and tucked it into the box where she kept her secrets. "You were my temporary miracle. I didn't know I could love like that. Thank you for reminding me." The tears came less often now, but they still came, and Amanda no longer fought them. She'd learned that crying is also a form of healing. Then Lisa handed her a yellowed envelope. "This was among Helena's things. I kept it for a long time, but it's yours now." Amanda's fingers trembled as she touched the aged paper. Inside, a letter from Helena, written before her death. In it, she spoke of Amanda's father, a man named Nathan, whom she described as someone who had everything except time to feel. Amanda read the letter over and over, her mind spinning. That name, that handwriting, it all started to make sense, but she wasn't ready to accept it yet. She needed to hear it from him. That night, Amanda walked to the gate of Cross Industries. She stood across the street, staring at the mirrored building where so many decisions had been made about her life, without her ever being asked. A black car pulled up, the window rolled down. Nathan Cross looked her in the eyes for the first time. No masks, no shadows. "You've got questions," he said. Amanda nodded, her heart pounding like a drum. "And I've got truths," he said. "But not all of them hurt less just because they're honest." The world fell silent around them, and Amanda knew. It was time. Time to face the man who had drawn her destiny and begin redrawing it with her own hands. What Amanda didn't know was that meeting Nathan wouldn't just bring answers. It would bring more questions. Because some stories can't be told in a single truth, and some wounds only heal when they're opened all the way. Amanda stepped into the mirrored office at the top of Cross Industries with slow, measured steps, but her heart was racing. Nathan Cross, imposing in his leather chair, stood up slowly like a man preparing to tear down a wall he'd built brick by brick. "Have a seat, Amanda," he said softly, his voice almost fragile. She stayed on her feet. "I'd rather hear the truth standing. I've spent too much of my life falling." Nathan nodded, like he'd expected that. From his jacket pocket he pulled out a small dark wooden box and placed it on the desk between them. "This belonged to your mother, and by right, to you." Amanda recognized the engraved symbol on the lid, a 4-leaf clover, the same design Martha had embroidered into the kitchen curtains. "Helena loved you more than anything in this world," Nathan said, his voice breaking with memory. "But I was a coward. I didn't know how to step up. I didn't look for you. She died before I even knew you existed." Amanda swallowed hard, but said nothing. He continued, "When I found out, 25 years later, I decided to watch you. I wanted to see who you were, and what I saw, it broke me and healed me, because you are everything I wasn't." Amanda finally sat down, not from exhaustion, but because the floor of her soul had started to cave in. "And Gabriel," she whispered. Nathan lowered his head. "Gabriel is your nephew, Marcus's son, your brother's child." The word hit like shrapnel. "He's the purest thing I have left in this family. That's why I tested you. I wanted to see if compassion could survive without knowing where it came from." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "You used me. You hurt me. On purpose." The pain in her voice was razor sharp. "You tested me like I was an employee, not a daughter." Nathan didn't deny it. "Yes, and I regret it. But some regrets come too late." Amanda stood. "My entire life has been pain. And now even my most tender moment with Gabriel was part of your experiment?" Nathan rose too, stepping across the room, stopping just in front of her. "It wasn't an experiment. It was hope. You're the only one who didn't break. The only one who understands what it means to lose and still choose to love." Amanda shook her head. "You don't know anything about me." Nathan held out an envelope. "Read this. Then you'll understand what I was trying to do." Amanda took it, but didn't open it. Not yet. When she walked out of the building, the world felt different, clearer, or maybe just crueler. She wandered aimlessly through the streets until she stopped in front of a newspaper stand. A headline stopped her cold. "Fire from 8 years ago traced to electrical failure." The article described a reopened investigation based on a new technical report. Amanda's body trembled. Did this mean she wasn't to blame? She grabbed the paper, flipping pages with urgency. There it was. Martha's name, the address, the date, a new report contradicting the old version of events. Back in her apartment, Amanda opened the envelope Nathan had given her. Inside, a full report from a private investigator. Photos, signatures, birth records, a complete dossier about her. And at the end, a handwritten letter. "Forgive me for taking so long to recognize you, but I see you now, all of you." The letter fell into her lap. Her hands trembled. But what she felt wasn't anger. It was freedom. For the first time, someone had truly seen her, even the broken parts, and still, they chose to stay. Lisa appeared at the door as if she'd known. Amanda showed her the report, the letter. Lisa sat down, tears filling her eyes. "I always knew it wasn't your fault, but I didn't know how to tell you without ripping the wound open again." Amanda hugged her, the way a daughter hugs a mother who's returned from an invisible war. "You're my family, You always were. And in that embrace, something reconnected. But Lisa still hadn't told her everything. There was a secret, one that might destroy everything. A secret about Gabriel. Later, alone in her room, Amanda stared at her reflection in the mirror and saw a woman who had walked barefoot through hell and still stood, still breathing, still strong. But the full truth hadn't come yet, because later that night Lisa sat down to write a letter, with trembling hands, ready to reveal something that would rewrite the entire story and show that Gabriel might not have been just Nathan's grandson. Amanda entered the closed diner like someone stepping through the ruins of a battlefield. It was just after midnight. Lisa sat at their usual table, eyes red, a letter clutched in her hands. "I have to tell you something before someone else does," she said, voice shaking. Amanda sat in silence. The tension between them hung like smoke. Lisa took a deep breath. "Gabriel, he's not just Nathan's grandson. He's my son." The world stopped. Amanda froze. "What?" she whispered. Lisa looked down. "I gave him up for adoption after he was born. The family who adopted him, they were friends of Marcus. He pulled Gabriel out when things got messy, and I had no choice." Amanda gasped. "You knew the whole time?" Her voice was a mix of rage and disbelief. "No, I didn't know he was Gabriel until I saw him here with you. And when I found out, I froze. I didn't think I had the right to interfere. But after watching you with him, I realized he was already more yours than mine." Amanda stood, heart pounding, tears rising. "You lied. Again. All of you." Lisa stood too, grabbing her arm. "I gave you shelter when no one else would. I protected you. I loved you. I'm human, Amanda. And I made mistakes." Hours later, Amanda arrived unannounced at the penthouse of Cross Industries. Nathan greeted her alone. His children were with lawyers trying to have her removed from the will. "They know about me?" she asked. Nathan nodded. "They want you gone. They see you as a threat to their fortune." Amanda crossed her arms. "Then maybe it's time I stop being the scared girl and show them who I really am." Nathan didn't smile, but something in his eyes shimmered. Pride, maybe. They scheduled a family meeting tonight. They want you there. In the boardroom, Amanda sat across from Marcus, Elena, and Thomas. The silence was electric. Marcus spoke first. "You're a fraud, a bastard. You're here for pity." Elena added, "Our father's old, weak. He's been fooled." Amanda listened calmly, then pulled out her mother's birth certificate, Helena's letter, and the fire report. "I'm Nathan's legitimate daughter, and unlike you, I didn't need money to learn empathy." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "You killed the woman who raised you." Amanda slid the report to him. "Read, then apologize to her memory." Nathan stayed silent through it all, then finally spoke. "Amanda's faced more trials in 3 days than you have in your entire lives, and she still chose love. That is leadership." Elena rolled her eyes. Thomas crossed his arms, silent. Marcus stormed out. Amanda, for the first time, wasn't trembling from fear. She trembled with power. She wasn't asking for permission anymore. She was demanding respect. Hours later, Amanda went to the children's hospital where Gabriel had been admitted days earlier with a virus. She asked to see him. The social worker hesitated, but agreed. Inside the room, Gabriel slept, clutching a small stuffed animal. Amanda sat beside him and whispered, "I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I do know this. I'll be here, always." The boy stirred, opened his eyes briefly, and smiled. Small, but enough to break every wall Amanda had built. In the hallway, Lisa waited, head down. Amanda approached slowly. "You lied, but you loved me. I don't know what to do with that yet. But today, I choose not to hate you." Lisa broke down in tears. Amanda hugged her, tentatively, but sincerely. It wasn't full forgiveness, not yet, but it was a step, a bridge between what was and what could be. Later, in the attic of an old building, Amanda opened her box of letters. She pulled out a fresh page and wrote, "Today I faced my ghosts, and I found out that even with them I can still love. Gabriel, if you ever read this, know that you saved me far more than I ever saved you." But what Amanda didn't know was that the fight still wasn't over, Because the next day a new letter would arrive, with a name on the return address she never expected to see again. Martha. Amanda held the manila envelope between her fingers like it was a ticking bomb. The handwritten name on the front, Martha Oliveira, felt like it mocked time, death, and logic itself. "This has to be a mistake," she whispered. But something about the handwriting, something was unmistakable. She sat on the kitchen floor, heart racing, and tore the seal open with trembling hands. Inside were 3 carefully folded pages, written in the same firm handwriting she used to see in her teenage notebooks. A letter dated 2 days before the fire, and in it, a revelation that would turn her entire life upside down. "Amanda, if you're reading this, it means something went wrong. I discovered something about your biological mother. She left me documents before she died, asking me to tell you the truth one day. Your father is someone who never came looking for her, but one day he might come looking for you. His name is Nathan Cross, and if that man ever shows up at your door, read this before you judge him." Amanda stopped. Her breathing was uneven. The letter continued. "You are the most beautiful part of my life, my girl. Promise me you'll keep being a light, even when there's only darkness. Promise me you'll forgive, even when it doesn't make sense." Tears poured freely down Amanda's face. It felt like the past was asking for permission to be rewritten. The guilt she'd carried over Martha's death began to dissolve in the warmth of truth. She wasn't the cause of the fire. She wasn't a destroyer. She was loved. She was chosen. That morning, Amanda sat in front of the mirror, looked at herself with new eyes and whispered, "You deserve a new beginning." And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. Nathan was the first to hear about the letter. Amanda showed up at his door unannounced, handed him the envelope, her hands still wet with tears, and simply said, "Read it, then we'll talk." He spent the night with the letter in his hands, eyes glassy, fingers brushing the paper like it was a relic. The next day he completely rewrote his will. Amanda was now officially part of the succession, on her terms. She demanded that a portion of the fortune be used to create a fund for single mothers and abandoned youth. Nathan didn't hesitate. Lisa, meanwhile, was overwhelmed by a storm of emotions. She gave Amanda Gabriel's adoption papers, confessing she'd never signed them, out of fear. Legally, he was still her son. But through tears, she admitted, "He's more yours than mine. I brought him into the world. You taught him how to love." Amanda took her hand. "Then maybe we can raise him. Together." Lisa's eyes widened. Tears spilled freely. "You'd do that for me?" Amanda smiled. "I'd do it for him. And for us." With the fund Nathan provided, Amanda rented a spacious house with a backyard and began renovating it, transforming it into a temporary shelter for mothers at risk. Gabriel, now legally under her care, ran through the rooms with the sure steps of a child who knew he was loved. Lisa baked cakes that smelled like childhood. Nathan visited sometimes, bringing storybooks and eyes softer than she'd ever seen before. The house was still under construction, but the soul of it, already a home. One sunny Saturday, Amanda brought Gabriel to the empty lot where Martha's house once stood. It was bare, but she remembered where everything had been. The tree they'd sit under, the broken porch bench, the spot where she had screamed for help. She buried a time capsule there with a handwritten note. "I chose to survive, but now I choose to live." Gabriel looked at her, confused. She just smiled. "This used to be the place where I was afraid. Now it's where I make peace with everything." During a family meeting organized by Nathan, Amanda sat across from her siblings. Marcus didn't show, but Elena and Thomas did. Elena was blunt. "You won. Congrats." Amanda took a deep breath. "I'm not here to win. I'm here to fix what can still be fixed." Thomas studied her. "Didn't think I'd ever say this, but maybe Dad finally got something right." Amanda nodded. She knew some bonds would never be strong, but at least now they were real. That night, Amanda rocked Gabriel in her arms and read him a story. He fell asleep before the end, but she kept reading. For herself. Because sometimes, even without an audience, you have to keep the story going. When she closed the book, she looked out the window and saw a clear sky. For the first time in ages, it didn't feel like the world was against her. It felt like the world was waiting, and she was ready. But just when everything seemed to fall into place, a figure stood across the street. A man, hat, coat, eyes locked on hers. and in his hand, an envelope identical to the one from Martha. Amanda closed the curtain slowly, her heart racing. The man was gone, but the envelope remained, sitting on her doormat. Her fingers shook as she picked it up. The handwriting was the same, Martha's. Again, but different. The ink was fresh. The paper, new. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Not everything you believed was true. Below it, a shaky signature. Margaret Helena. Amanda felt the world spin. The mother she believed was dead could still be alive. The next day, Nathan gathered what strength he had left and confessed what he'd kept hidden for years. Your mother, Helena, she didn't die in that accident. She disappeared, and someone paid for me to believe she was gone. By the time I found out, it was too late. She changed her name, started over, and you were left with Martha for protection. Amanda gasped. You knew and never looked? Nathan lowered his head. I did look, but she didn't want to be found. And then Amanda understood. Her story didn't begin with abandonment. It began with escape. With Lisa's help, Amanda found Margaret Helena, now an older woman living in a quiet village in Santa Teresa. When she knocked, a gray-haired woman with green eyes exactly like hers opened the door. Helena stared at Amanda, like seeing a ghost, or maybe a miracle. You've grown, she whispered. And you disappeared, Amanda replied, caught between rage and relief. Then came the hug. Long, messy, necessary. Through tears, Helena explained. She fled after threats from the Cross family, who wanted her gone to protect Nathan's reputation. Amanda listened to every word, but she didn't forgive. Not right away. Still, she stayed. Days later, Amanda officially opened Casa Martha, a shelter for mothers carrying stories and guilt the world refused to see. Lisa stood beside her. Gabriel sat on her hip, and Helena watched from the crowd. Nathan gave a short speech, his voice shaky, his gaze fixed on his daughter. Everything I am now is because of her. The woman who showed me that real legacy is what we leave in people's hearts. Amanda took the stage. She didn't say much, just held the mic and said, Pain shapes us, but love rebuilds us. That golden afternoon as children ran through the garden and guests wiped tears from their cheeks, Amanda knew the cycle had closed. Guilt had turned into purpose, fear into courage, loneliness into belonging. She was no longer the scared girl from the past. She was a woman, a mother, a daughter, and most of all, reborn. Before ending the event, Amanda pulled one of Martha's old letters from her pocket. She read it aloud. If one day you forget who you are, look into a child's eyes and remember, you are love that survived the fire. Adim, have you ever helped someone or been helped at a time you needed it the most? Share your story in the comments, I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories like this one.